So let's talk a little bit about your YouTube channel, because a couple interesting things have happened with that. So you do a lot of direct-to-camera stuff where you explain a lot of evolutionary stuff. I mean, all the things that are in your expertise, and you talk about religion and a lot of great stuff that I love to share. But you've screen capped a couple times in the last few weeks that YouTube has unmonetized some of your videos. Now, I love YouTube. The reason that I'm doing this show independently is because I wanted to remain fully on YouTube. We all know about the discovery on YouTube. This is where everyone finds us, et cetera, et cetera. But what do you make of what's happening? I mean, I'm pretty sure I've watched almost all your videos. I've never seen you say anything hateful or call for violence or even marginalize a group in any way, any of that stuff. And YouTube has come after a couple of your videos lately.
Right. So there are two levels. In some cases, they unmonetize a clip. So for those people who don't know what that means, basically it removes the ability for the content provider to make money off that clip. And the reality is I make very, very, very little money on my YouTube clips, because I'm not the gamer. I don't remember his name.
PewDiePie. Yeah, you're not pulling in the PewDiePie money?
That's right. Who I think, 44 million subscribers, 12 point, he's making 124 million, right? I mean, I can't buy shoes with the amount of money that I'm making. So certainly my indignation is not due to the fact that you're removing the right of my, being able to buy a house on Laguna Beach.
Yeah, by the way, you didn't even monetize for at least 2 years.
2 months,
exactly. It was about 2 months ago. You emailed me, you said, how do I even turn this on?
Even Patreon, I only started in the fall, right? Yeah. Precisely because it takes so much of my time. I mean, this is your full-time job. I'm doing this as extra. Yeah. This is after my 12-hour, up to 18-hour day is when I do this stuff, okay? So it only makes sense that hopefully you can be remunerated in some small amount.
Sure.
So what they usually do is they unmonetize the clip for whatever reason, I don't know why. And then you could request a manual review, which I guess some actual human goes through, and they either then remonetize it or they unmonetize it permanently. And the reality is that there is a general theme to the clips. Let's not say what it is. There's usually a theme to what is being unmonetized. So if we're going to be charitable, then I might say that it's maybe an algorithm that is being used. It's not a human. There's an algorithm. If you ever see the word, and here I'll put in square brackets, redacted, right?
You're saying Islam.
Just
for the few people that don't.
I am saying Islam.
Yeah.
Then it will get unmonetized, and it's some algorithm that needs to be fixed and updated. If I'm going to be less charitable and kind of more conspiratorial, then there is literally some clear directive where people are being told, remove this type of stuff. So in either cases, it's soul crushing.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, and unless we were, I would welcome the CEO of Google or YouTube or any of these people to come on the show and talk to me about this. And I've invited Mark Zuckerberg and I've invited Jack from Twitter and all these people, but they keep this stuff kind of secret. And when I've talked to a couple insiders at a few of these companies, what they've told me is that it's not necessarily the algorithm, but there is a mob of people that don't like you, for example, about what you're saying about Islam, so they automatically keep flagging your videos, and they're all day long, and they're doing it from multiple accounts, and eventually that flagging then leads to either the algorithm kicking in or whatever their then safety, you've hit the threshold, and then they unmonetize it. But that's just as dangerous. Letting the inmates run the asylum is just as dangerous as letting the algorithm, a flawed algorithm, run the asylum.
And I should say, what I'm going to say next, this reality should not exist independently of what I'm going to say next. But if you typically look at the like to dislike ratio of all of these clips that they unmonetize, it's astronomical. 700 likes, 4 dislikes. So it's not as though people are collectively saying this guy's putting out bad content. Not that if I were putting out bad content, you should be censoring me. But the reality is there is nothing, as you said, that's objectionable in what I'm saying.
It might be objectionable, but it may not.
That's life.
But that's life.
That's right. What I meant to say is something that would truly, I'm triggering violence against a group of people or hate speech. I'm not doing any of this stuff. And oftentimes it's just conversations with other academics or experts. Oh, it has Islam in it, boom, unmonetized.
Yeah, so I bring this up not so that we can pontificate on our little YouTube worlds, although I do think that this little ecosystem.
Mine is a lot more little than yours.
And mine's a lot more little than PewDiePie, so whatever. But I don't bring it up so that we can just sort of do insider baseball on that, as much as it shows that there is something bigger happening here related related to free speech. So, for an example, with Milo being booted off Twitter, and just in the last couple weeks, Ali Rizvi, who I know you know, and Faisal and Melissa Chen all got banned temporarily from Facebook.
Ingrid Kalkvist, who was on my show,
on your show,
was banned. I mean, I know tons of people who've been banned.
Right. So I've helped some of them get back on Facebook because I have a decent connection to Facebook. But how do you place that threat to free speech? Because in America, we do have the First Amendment, and it's about the government coming for your free speech. So this isn't government, regardless of whether it's an algorithm or just a kid clicking flag. It's not the government, but these companies, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, are very in cahoots with the government. We know that they meet with high-level officials all the time. So how do we separate those two things? How do we go about the discussion in an honest way?
So legally, I'm unsure what would be the ways by which we can address it. I'll leave that to the relevant experts, legal experts. But in terms of the zeitgeist, it's dangerous, right? I mean, the fact that you and I might even, before we send the post button, or, oh, is Facebook going to ban me for this? The fact that I have that instinct, it has never stopped me from posting whatever I want.
Sure.
Incidentally, I was at one point myself, let me mention this very quick story. There was a woman, a Lebanese, I think Christian woman, who was sending me, but why don't you hate Israel? But you're not being fair. Why don't you hate Israel? You have to hate Israel, and so on. And it was progressively getting more Jew hatred.
Yeah.
So at one point, I decided to just say who she was. I mean, although she had posted stuff, so she was public, I said, here's the person who's the Jew hater.
Yeah.
She must have complained to Facebook, and for one day they banned me or something. I had to kind of log in or whatever. Now, so you can post hatred towards me.
Right.
I say who you are, I get banned. So it's dangerous. There should be, unless you're posting something that says, go out and harm these people, incitement for violence, that's a no-no. Otherwise, everything is a go.
How much is the free speech debate being had in Canada? Because obviously you guys don't have the Ten Commandments. You don't have our Bill of Rights, but you have a healthy respect for free speech and a history of free speech. But it is a little different.
It is. I mean, you have a strong additional layer of protection by having the First Amendment. So in Quebec right now, there is a bill that's being discussed, and I'm not sure where it is in the process. Bill 52, I can't remember the number. It's a bill on hate speech, no denigration of religion and so on. Of course, the driver behind that whole bill stems from not touching one particular religion. Okay, but
I won't say it this time.
Exactly.
I think they got the point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's a very, very dangerous thing, because now you can have a bureaucrat. I don't know all the details of the law, but if somebody complains about you having posted something on your Facebook page that is denigrating towards a particular religion, then you could be taken. And now they don't put you in jail, but they'll fine you. I don't know, $7,000, whatever it is. Well, that's going to make me think twice before I press that. So it's dangerous, and you see it all over Europe, right? I mean, Geert Wilders, for some of your guests some of your viewers who don't know who he is, he's a Dutch parliamentarian who could potentially be the next Prime Minister of the Netherlands. He was taken in front of a court in Netherlands because he said some things that were deemed hate speech. And at that, he stood up in front of the magistrate and said, but do you contest the veracity of what I'm saying? Not that, by the way, the veracity should matter whether you should say it or not.
Right.
The judge answered, I mean, if you want to get goosebumps, this is going to get you goosebumps. He said, it doesn't matter whether what you say is true or false. Even if it's true, if it denigrates a people or a religion, then you're not allowed to say it. So even saying something truthful becomes hate speech. It's grotesque.
So is the problem here that we've put religion in such a protected class that even when there's a political element to religion, and this again is what Bill Warner focuses on, and his site is called Political Islam, there is a political element to Islam that the other religions don't really have. Not to say that Christianity hasn't had a strong influence on America, we know, but the Christian right is crumbling. We know that right now. I mean, I went to the Reason rally in DC, there were about 5 protesters, and they were being laughed at the whole time. The Christian right is having virtually no effect in the election. election this year. The evangelicals, Trump went there, did you see that? He went to Liberty College, babbled at them for a minute, screwed up some verses, and it was like they've lost their influence. They lost the gay marriage battle, et cetera, et cetera. But that with Islam, there is a political bent to it, and we can't seem to untie these two things, and that's the danger. You're not attacking anyone for their faith as long as it doesn't bother anybody else, but you're talking about the political element that could put women in beekeeper costumes, as Bill Maher says, and all this stuff, and that's the part we have to fight.
Exactly, and again, to go back to my analogy of the person who's 20 pounds overweight and 200 pounds overweight, both are called overweight. If we stop the descriptor there, then they're indistinguishable. But if we say that how much overweight you are matters, then we recognize that the 20-pound overweight is not the same as, so same thing for religion. Or I think Sam Harris uses the example of sports analogies. I don't know which sports he uses, right? MMA fighting is a sport and badminton is a sport. They're both called sport. One is a lot more violent than the other, right?
Yeah, so badminton can be quite
could be quite right, exactly. So the reality is there is a unique reality to political Islam that we need to confront. And no, Mormons and Seventh-day Adventists are not indistinguishable from the nefarious aspects of political Islam. Yeah. And I mean, only a fool or somebody who is duplicitous is going to argue otherwise. It's so clear.
Yeah, it is incredibly clear. All right. Well, I think we spend so much time and energy talking about that, but let's move a little bit to your academic stuff before we have to wrap up. And you've peppered it in here because it all fits within the construct of what you're talking about. What do you do all day as a professor? I think people wonder, what is as a professor? Are you sitting in a smoking jacket and I picture you and there's a lot of books around you and folders and files and you're in a chair and you're befuddled and kids are banging on the door? Is that, or did I just make it up? Or are you doing more of an Indiana Jones kind of thing? Are you out and doing adventures?
A bit of those and much more. So a lot of people, let's say, who don't know what academics do, think that you're basically a high school teacher, except that the students are older. Nothing could be further from the truth, right? So teaching is actually a very important, but a small part of your day. So I teach students, of course. I apply for grants. I serve on editorial boards of scientific journals. Sometimes I'm an associate editor of a journal. I supervise graduate students. But predominantly, most of my day is spent thinking and writing, doing studies, writing up papers for scientific journals, writing books. So if you look at all of the things that I do in a typical day, a serious professor can work 12, 14-hour days doing much, much more than teaching. So one of the things that actually one of my colleagues said that's the thing that irks him most about being a professor is that when people tell him, oh, so you're not teaching the semester, so you're off.
Right.
Because if you're not teaching that 3-hour class, the rest of the time we're all surfing. Because the books, they write themselves. The scientific papers, they write themselves, right? I mean, typically a paper, for you to write a paper, a scientific paper, you come up with the idea, then you decide how you're going to collect the data. You collect the data, you analyze the data, you write up the paper, you send it to a journal, and then it goes through many rounds of peer review. So the process of publishing a scientific paper could take 2, 3, 4 years. And you're doing many of these projects and supervising students and writing grants and writing books. And so whatever I do that you see as a public intellectual outside my job as a professor is an added on. I already have a very stressed professional life, and that's something that I take on simply because I think that my small voice can hopefully contribute to the big debate. And so going back to our earlier argument, give a brother a break, right? I mean, we do a lot of stuff, and I'm not getting paid for this, and I'm not making a lot of. I'm doing this only from the purity of my heart to lend my small voice.
Yeah, it's funny. Every now and again, one of the random haters will be screaming, "Well, Rubin's only talking about this stuff because he knows he's going to make money off it," and it's like, there is no network that would put me on. Like, is Fox going to put me on? I'm too left.
Right.
Is MSNBC going to put me on? I'm too right or center. Is CNN? No, because I have an opinion, so they're not going to. So it's like everyone they make up their little ideas about you.
You're doing this because of the strength of your convictions.
Because I care about this, and I guess I'm okay at it. But we'll see. How, when you're doing all this stuff, so everything we've talked about, this is serious stuff. You're working hard as a professor. All this. How do you get some balance in your life amongst all that? This is what I asked Sam, who's under such assault constantly from all these people, and wrote a book called Waking Up: Spirituality Without Religion. Do you have any spiritual practices in your own life, or how do you get some sort of inner peace?
So the closest that I would come to spirituality would be to sit on a beach in Southern California and experience the elements without having somebody sending me endless requests. That would be the closest that I would come to a transcendental moment. I mean, I exercise a lot, despite the fact that you probably don't believe it. I mean, I love to be physically active. You know, I used to be a serious competitive athlete, so I haven't lost the desire to exercise. So if I'm feeling very stressed, you know, getting on the bike for an hour is the way by which I decompress. But actually, I think that I haven't achieved the right balance. I think that I'm way too accessible. And again, it comes from a strand of purity that I have. I feel as though I owe this person a response, right? Somebody just wrote 4 paragraphs to me in email, and I could do the smart thing, which is ignore it, because I receive 400 of those emails a day, or I feel guilty. Like, this guy just took 45 minutes to write me this thing, asking me about some personal thing. Well, now I just lost 25 minutes because I'm going to write to him. So, to be honest with you, I don't think I'm very good at achieving balance, and usually my yearly pilgrimage to Southern California is where I try to recharge.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel very much the same way. It's like I see what's going on in my inbox. People writing these incredibly personal, nice notes to me, and I want, you know, I live this. You know what I mean? I'm living this in the most.
Well, it's humbling.
It's humbling, and but it's now. You know what I mean? Like, it all feels very now to me. I'm doing something that's relevant now, and I'm doing it because I think it's the right thing to do. But if I was to give much more, it's sort of like the giving tree. I could give a certain amount more, and then eventually you just got to stump. I forget how the giving tree ends, but I think it's not good for the tree, right?
Right.
It doesn't end well for the tree.
Well, just to add, I mean, and sometimes because I'm giving so much to random strangers, then the ones that truly matter, which is someone called your wife and your children, say, yeah, my wife will see me on the, I said, could you put it down? And so the reality is that we do have to step back and achieve that balance, because that random person, ultimately, you don't owe them anything.
Yeah. The machines are going to take over, huh?
The machines are going to take over. We're doomed.
We're doomed one way or another. Listen, we could talk forever. I mean, we really could just talk forever. I'm going to ask you to stick around and do one little bonus thing that we're going to do for our patron people, but it was a pleasure chatting with you as always. And you got to get down to SoCal more often.
From your lips to the cosmos' ears.
To the cosmos' ears. All right. Well, of course, I want to thank my friend Gad Saad, and you can check him out on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Gad Saad, and it's patreon.com/
Gad Saad.
Gad Saad, we think, but we'll at least put a link to it down. But see, he does not care about money, people. We just proved it right there. All right, thanks for watching. We'll do it again next week.